For some reason, it has become somewhat of a tradition for me to hate read books while I am visiting my parents. So we're doing it again today. I asked you guys to pick one of the books that I already own to hate read, and the winner, by an absolute landslide, which was a shock to me, was The Blood of Hercules by Jasmine Moss. I'm going into this pretty much completely blind. I know nothing beyond the fact that I think it's romantasy. And as always, I am kind of assuming that I will hate this, but if I don't, if I end up enjoying it, I will make sure to let you know. But I do think that I'm probably going to dislike this just based on everyone's comments. Okay, the dedication is interesting. This book is dedicated to all the girls who like morally gray, fictional men and who screamed out loud the first time they read, "Who did this to you?" This one's for you. Already grammatically, we're not in a great place. Is it the girls screaming out loud, "Who did this to you?" Or did they read "Who did this to you" and then scream? It's ambiguous. Godspeed and good luck to me, I guess. Okay, one chapter in. The writing is not my favorite. It's melodramatic as hell. Also, I didn't really consider it, but I should have based on the title. This does use Greek mythology, which I am like pretty into, and this seems to be Greek mythology, but like in an alternate universe kind of way. I mean, I guess that's interesting. I don't know. We'll see what she does with it. It could be good. I'm only like 5 pages in, but I am feeling more optimistic than I was with my other hate reads, so that's like a pretty good sign, like relatively. Cautiously optimistic, probably won't remain that way, but let's see. Okay, I take it all back. That mildly interesting first chapter was just completely overshadowed by the massive amounts of info dumping that I just had to read. I get that it can be hard for authors that are creating a world that has a certain amount of backstory before the story that you're wanting to tell begins. And it can be hard to integrate that info into the normal, like, flow of the book. But I don't think that one chapter of just, like, pure history book-esque facts with no character behind it is the way to go. Like, who is telling me this information? It completely took me out of the story. I will also say that the story sounds insane. So 8 of the Olympian gods that we already know are like Olympian houses, but then 4 of them like went completely insane, I guess. They're called chthonic houses. So that is Hades, Aphrodite, Artemis, and Ares. You know who doesn't belong in that group is Artemis, okay? She's awesome and a badass, and leave her alone. Also, they're not Olympian gods, they're all Spartans. Sparta is Olympians, and Olympians are good Spartans. Yes. And then humans are just weak as shit, apparently. Also, there are Titans, and also it's 2050? Maybe this is why she laid it out like she did, because this is, like, incredibly confusing right off the bat, and I don't understand it. But actually, this would be a situation where I personally would want to, like, stretch out this information over like a few chapters to get the audience used to it, because this is like a lot to take in. It is now the year 2090. The Titans had arrived in the year 2050 and the world had crumbled. Kids at school called it apocalyptic core. I called it hell. Their existence was unfortunate if you wanted to live. I didn't. Last week I looked wrongly at father, so he tied me up with a rough rope because I was a lazy, good-for-nothing, spoiled 10-year-old bitch. I mean, someone needed to take care of his mental health the cheap way. Hit him over the head with a shovel. Okay, her parents suck. This is good information to have. I mean, fucked up parents of some kind is like pretty standard in the romantasy canon, but could you be like a little more subtle about it? Like, I'm only on page 26. There is so much book left to get through. 50 pages in, and this is already the most unsubtle book that I think I've ever read. Our main character's name is Alexis, and her foster parents are just like cartoonishly evil. More than that, this is a very fast-paced book, but the author stops like every few pages or so just to do a massive info dump of like all this information that she forgot to share earlier, I guess. Not that the story's like really pulling me in anyways, but every time I get this info dump, it just like completely takes me out of what's happening. Also, her best friend is a snake who is also the Greek goddess Nyx. And now that we've established the trauma backstory, we skip ahead completely to high school. Let me know if I'm being too nitpicky, but I really feel like they could have started the book in high school and then revealed the past trauma and all of this world building, like, as we get to know the world and the characters. Like, even though I think the author is flagrantly misusing the Greek gods and all of that source material, like, the names are there, but, like, everything else is just completely made up. Even though I do think that the story so far isn't bad. I'm not offended by it yet, but I do think that the way that this book is structured is just like not very good so far. Everything was riding on me scoring top 0.001% on the Spartan merit test this June. Every 19-year-old on Earth took the Spartan test to determine if they could attend one of the 3 Spartan higher education universities that were left in the world. Do you think she's gonna get in? I'm not sure. I've never read this trope before. 0.001% is crazy, honestly. Oh, and she's still homeless and everyone says that she smells bad. I get that you want to give trauma to this main character that's very obvious, but do you have to make her scarred and homeless and have awful parents and smell bad? At a certain point, it just becomes a caricature. It doesn't feel like a well-developed character at all. It just feels like you're piling on trauma for the sake of trauma. Okay, so the beginning of this chapter is just talking about like what a loser Alexis is, basically. Then they start talking about the Spartans, which we know are the Olympians. The website also had some deeper and more thought-provoking content on the Spartans, sketches of their naked penises submitted by humans after first-hand accounts. Not that I'd looked. Okay, I'd looked once, but I'd screamed and powered down the public library computer. Fine, I'd restart it just so I could look again. Sure, then I'd spend 5 days in a row checking the page because I couldn't believe men really had such things between their legs. What a subtle and profound way to establish that she is a virgin. Surely her virginity won't be a plot point later on. Surely. Holy crap, it's him, a student said. It's Achilles. Everyone knew about Achilles. He was the only Spartan who wore a muzzle? He was a monster among monsters. He's so hot, Jessica whispered. I know, the entire class replied as one. Since the Spartans were also known for having sex with anyone and everyone, they had no biases against genders and usually dated, were slutty with, multiple people at once. It was a fad for humans to emulate their sexually free lifestyle. I couldn't have cared less. Ah, my favorite character trope, the pick-me. Just a guess, based on this info dumping, I do wonder if Alexis will eventually hook up with Achilles. That seems like it's being foreshadowed. In a plot twist that I'm sure that no one saw coming, Alexis is a lost Spartan. Who could have thought? We found that out when she took that test that I mentioned earlier, and at the conclusion of the test, she had to put some of her blood on like the front test page, and it started smoldering, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, she's Spartan. First question, why would they not have done that like way earlier in this society? Like surely there were other tests, right? Like you just gonna wait until she's like 19 to find that out? Second of all, apparently they have teleportation and they teleported her to Sparta, which in real life is in Greece. In this, it's in Rome, and they speak Latin, but also the head Spartan is called Zeus. Like, I don't think the author understands the source material. Like, at least call him Jupiter. Like, make it the Latin version of that god. I know that's nitpicky, but it's like a detail that bothers me. Like, just pick a location. Don't mix them. I'm annoyed. And she walks into the Spartan contest, and apparently all of these initiates who are like half human, half god / Spartan, they're competing to become immortal. What I will say is that compared to the other books that I've read, at least so far, the writing is not bad. Like with the other ones, there were grammatical errors, there were spelling issues, and I was like just offended by the quality of writing. This I don't think is like very good storytelling just in terms of structure, but the actual like grammar and spelling, the lowest bar that one can clear, like that is all fine and dandy. I have no problems with it. So already this is better than the other books that I have done this with. Oh, this detail just dropped. Heiresses were super rare and highly sought after because of all the Spartan fertility issues. What do you want to bet that her womb is going to become a hot commodity? And we've already established that she's a virgin and thinks dicks are weird. So I don't think that's going to go very well for her suitors. Okay, so to get into Sparta Academy, all of these half-blooded people, they call them mutts, which just feels disrespectful. But all of these mutts have to fight to the death until there's only 10 left, which I think is a really weird contrast to also being told that there are fertility issues in this area. Like, you need more young people, but yet you're sending all of the young people to die, including the quote-unquote first female mutt in centuries, Alexis. Like, that doesn't make any fucking sense. And since she got into Sparta, she gets 2 mentors, Achilles, who I mentioned earlier, and Patro, who I didn't mention earlier, but was described earlier in the book as being equally hot. So I guess the only question I have at this point is this going to be a love triangle or a why choose romance? Could be either. I don't know. We'll see. Like, I don't think it is badly written. The writing is actually fine, but the story is like pretty stupid. So far, it is not stupid in a way that is making me actively angry, and I think that that is a win. Oh my god. You're ours now, Patro said slowly, his voice cold. Let me be crystal clear, Patro snarled. We own you, and we won't go easy on you just because you're an abandoned girl. His lips curled. Also, you disgust us. We don't like you, and we never will, so rid yourself of all romantic delusions. You're Olympian, and we're chthonic. We don't give a single shit about you, got it? Wow, I never would have known that they didn't want to be her mentors if I wasn't beaten over the head with that information. Oh, and by the way, they're both very incredibly supernaturally tall. Obviously. When am I gonna get to read about a short king in a romantasy? Just one. The short guys need a win. Also, in case anyone was worried, she still has her snake god friend, and she's the only one who can hear her talking. So, like, maybe she's imaginary. Okay, so her mentors hate her, and they refuse to help her. She has to go to the Spartan War Academy called the Crucible, and they just told her that they're not going to give her a plan. They're going to make sure that she can survive on her own, and then they'll agree to help her, even though they desperately need her to live. Like, I'm all for enemies to lovers. That's fine. I'm all for animosity and banter, but it has to feel like at least a little authentic. Literally began with the mentors saying how much they hated her, and they just keep on talking down to her and refusing to help her, and considering that, like, how much they need her apparently to succeed so that they themselves can progress, it just doesn't feel like it's earned in any way, this animosity. So now she gets to go to this war academy, which could be fun to read about. Again, I just don't understand, like, if she's this special and if fertility is this big of a deal, like, why are they allowing her to go, like, maybe get killed over and over and over again and, like, refusing to help her? That just doesn't make any fucking sense. That's at the beginning of every chapter. That's how I feel about that. So one thing about Alexis is not only does she not even really know what penises are, but she is extremely averse to being touched by anyone because she was abused as a child. So I'm pretty curious how that's going to play out when the eventual boning does commence. But also is another thing that's just being hammered into us over and over and over again. She brushed her mentor's arm. Oh, she doesn't like touching people. He accidentally, like, poked her in the side. No, she doesn't like touching people. Not to minimize this character's trauma at all, but it's a lot. It's a lot. She also heard mysterious creaking in the room next to hers and some screaming, and she was concerned but didn't think too much of it. Like, girl, like, I get it. She's an innocent virgin that doesn't know what sex sounds like and doesn't like being touched. I understand. I'm not an idiot. Also, this rift between the chthonics and the regular Olympians, like, still doesn't make any fucking sense to me because it was explained so quickly. Like, they used to hate each other and there was a war, but now they're allied against the Titans, but they still hate each other, but also, like, the Calorian professors teach at this Olympian school, and, like, it's... nothing is logical. It's just arranged the way the author needs it to be arranged for the narrative of the story, but I can feel her hand in everything because it just doesn't make any fucking sense. Okay, and the teachers hate her too. Like, I'm sorry, that just doesn't make sense. That doesn't feel earned at all. Like, she's rare. They need more females for, like, fertility reasons. Why do they hate her? Also, we just got a POV chapter from Charon, who's like the guy in the boat that escorts souls to the underworld, but in this one, he's still a guy in the boat, but he tries to kill all of these, like, Sparta initiates, basically. And he's mad evil, and he has 2 dogs, and their names are Hell and Hound, so that's creative. And also Charon is, like, fascinated with Alexia. Like, there's something special about her. So naive, but also so fiery. So maybe I was wrong. Maybe she will sleep with the boatman. I am just really wondering how that's going to play out. I know I'm making assumptions that she's gonna, like, sleep with someone, but this is a romantasy, so I don't think that's totally unfounded. But if she's this naive innocent that can't bear to be touched, I don't know how this is gonna play out without it being, like, really weird and creepy. Everyone is so mean to this poor girl. One thing I didn't mention earlier is that she does have a stutter, and, like, talking to strangers is really hard for her. And so everyone keeps on calling her like stupid and a bitch and like all this horrible stuff. And she's just like completely silent, which is sad. But also people keep assuming that like she's either stupid or that she's hiding things from people or that she did stuff on purpose. Like they use every insult they can, and sometimes those insults contradict each other. And I keep on hammering this home, but I just think that like if she's the first female mutt to appear in several centuries, shouldn't that have been a good thing? Like, why is she like this miraculous rare thing, but also everyone's so fucking awful to her? That doesn't make any sense to me. I'm also no longer convinced that she's going to fuck one of her mentors. I think she might fuck the boatman. We'll have to see. I do also have to say that tonally, this book is odd. Like, obviously she had a horrible childhood, and obviously everyone hates her and thinks that she's awful and stupid and gross. But also, Alexis's inner dialogue reads very early 2000s quirky female protagonist of an indie film. Like, the outer plot says horrible things are happening, and the inner dialogue just says, ah, what a quirky situation. The author also has like an egregious use of parentheses, in my opinion, which I know is nitpicky, but it's getting to be a little bit old. Apparently all of these Spartans also have an animal companion, because of course they do, I guess. But Alexis keeps on thinking about one of her teacher's animal companions, like, oh, so cute. But then the teacher does something awful to her, and in parentheses, not cute. And it's just like, it's this faux, quirky, relatable style of prose that I just like am really not into. Like the actual plot and the situation read like the Hunger Games. It is that aggressive. And then the inner dialogue is almost giving Allie Hazelwood female protagonist. Like it's that much of a disconnect, and I just don't think it works, honestly. So an interesting plot device that is both stupid and creative somehow is that Alexis is deaf in her left ear. So sometimes when people say things to her, she just completely misses it. Again, it's both clever and also very dumb. So it's pretty obvious to me that the Clatonics, chlorine people, whatever the fuck, they're rare and also evil, I guess, and also she's one of them, but she doesn't know, but her professor told her, but it was like in her bad ear. Like it's worse than the miscommunication trope somehow, which I hate. Also, the professor is hot. I should mention that. His name is Augustus. Really, I just don't know who she's gonna get with, so that's kind of fun. Also, all of these mutts are supposed to have one special power, and she thinks she doesn't have one, but like other people know that she does have one and are like don't tell her, like assume that she knows, but also it's weird, honestly. And I can't say that it's enjoyable to be in this character's head when she's like this quirky and not like other girls, but also like kind of oblivious and like a little stupid. Like it's not that enjoyable of a place to be. Yay, not being murdered in a fit of rage. Wahoo, God is good. Like, and I don't know, man. And I honestly don't know which of these four men she's gonna go for, because she has described in detail how hot all of them are, and also how she doesn't know what sex is, and ooh, penises. Like, I'm not saying that that's a contrast that one couldn't have in a book, but it would need to be presented better, honestly. Okay, now we're getting a POV chapter from that hot professor that I just mentioned, and he thinks that Alexis entered the Crucible in Sparta on purpose to make a statement about how women should be allowed to participate in the Crucible. First of all, obviously they are, because she was made to go there. And second of all, she was brought there against her will, which everyone should know. And so I just don't understand why these people think that she's like this mastermind and how she like wants to make a statement for women, because like there is absolutely no evidence to that. It's like the miscommunication trope on steroids. Like, I'm not enjoying how this book's entire premise is just built on one giant misunderstanding. She was clearly here to make a statement about women in Sparta. Not on my watch. It was completely fucking unacceptable. From what I'd seen, Alexis blundered through life, naive and frustratingly innocent, with no thought for the consequences. Mix in her sanctimonious need to prove women should fight alongside Spartan men, and you had my worst nightmare come to life. Like, I guess the dynamic in there is kind of interesting, but again, this was not like set up by the actual events that happened in this book. So like, I just don't understand how this is logical at all. Oh. Her tongue flicked out and she licked across her blood-covered lips. They were curved perfectly. My silk boxers grew tight and I instantly loathed myself. Fuck, what was I doing? I was older than her, and I was her professor. If I stay in this library another second, I'm going to murder both these boys for touching her, then kidnap and handcuff her to my bed. Okay, so we have a front runner now. That is exciting. And I quote, Nix, I think I get what you mean about the violence being romantic and about the devotion. Jesus Christ, is that a bad message? What is this, fucking 1944? Statement, the violence is romantic, is just absolutely infuriating and really irresponsible, honestly. Especially since I know that the demographic that usually reads these types of books are women in their early 20s. And that's just not a great thing to write. I don't like it. Also, the two mentors are gay and they're together, so I was wrong about that. There was this joke like 100 pages ago that I thought was a one-time thing, but it's just turned into a running joke that the author clearly thinks is hilarious, and it's not. The joke is that Alexis thinks that all birds are government surveillance drones. It was kind of funny the first time, the 5th time not so much. The 10th time, I'm sick of it. A hawk screeches in warning. Will the drones ever stop spying on us? Like, shut the fuck up, girl. Someone who's read this book explained this to me. How do they think she is both a dirty mutt that was abandoned in the human world and that she's a mastermind that's like campaigning for the rights of Spartan women? It doesn't make any fucking sense. I have now reached the 300-page mark. I really have had enough of Alexis being like, oh, I'm so brilliant, but also I'm just so confused. Won't someone tell me what's happening? I can't ask. It's just one giant fucking miscommunication trope with horrible interpretations of Greek mythology. I will also say that already, why is this a 500-page book? Like, no need for that, I don't think. I can only take so much of, oh my word, I'm so confused, and we have hit that limit. Like, I'm pretty much over it. Apparently, as a reward for being good little Spartans, they got to go to Spartan Club, and there was an orgy. Yay, orgy. Which, of course, Alexis hates, because not only does she hate being touched, but butts are gross. But she discovers that her secret power is that she is fluent in all languages, so the sirens that are there, because of course they're there, no one else can speak to them, but she is special, and she can speak the fish person language. Anyways, she gets drunk and starts taking her clothes off, and Boatman and Professor Man both get really uppity about it. You have no idea what you've just done with your little display. What you've started. He inhaled deeply, then let out a guttural moan like he couldn't help himself. Here's a question. If she hates even brushing up against most people, why does she not react at all when either of these hot, dangerous men grab her by the throat? Like, wouldn't you think that that would be the most triggering? I would. God, she's so stupid. How dare you touch her, Augustus, the professor snarled. Then he chucked the siren across the room like he weighed nothing, in all caps. If anyone in Sparta lays a single finger on Alexis, they answer to me, he roared into the room. I blinked up at my professor, the man who hated me, in horror. What the heck is he doing? Jeez, girl, I don't know. He doesn't want anyone else to touch you. What could that possibly mean? It's so obscure and convoluted. Okay, honestly, this book is fairly normal when it's in Alexis's POV. Now, when we get those rare male chapter POVs, that's where the goofiness starts. I've never met anyone who is such an intoxicating combination of shy and bloodthirsty. I loosened my diamond-encrusted belt to release the pressure in my pants. Alexis smiled seductively, slowly tugging down one of her toga sleeves. I palmed myself through my pants. I stared, entranced. Hell growled deep in his throat and startled me out of my trance. What the fuck is she doing? Halfway towards my prey, I stopped. Augustus grabbed her neck and stopped her. He was choking her. Gently. They were devastatingly handsome together. Both were vicious. Both uniquely attractive. Augustus and I had shared hundreds of people over the years. We preferred fucking together. I'm a child. Pride filled in me as I watched Alexis melt beneath his touch. Heat flashed in both their gazes. I smiled. Things were progressing faster than I had expected. The timeline would need to be accelerated. Okay, Boatman has a plan, and it be a fucking plan, I believe. So I think this actually might be a why choose romance, but I don't think it's the type of why choose romance that I thought it was. Not with her mentors, it's with teacher and Boatman. One thing that I forgot to mention earlier that I really don't want to go into detail about is that the snake friend, who is supposed to be her best friend, her only role in this is to just be horny and sometimes to bite people. And no one else can see her, obviously. I almost wonder if the snake friend is imaginary because everyone else knows that Alexis is poisoning people, and maybe she thinks it's the snake. I don't fucking know. This doesn't make sense. Also, Boatman just yelled at her and told her that she is one of those chlorine people, and she still doesn't fucking get it. Obviously. If that ends up being the climax of the book, where she's like, oh my god, I am this super special Olympian that's like sort of illegal almost. Oh my god. Because it has been obvious since page 50. What can I say? She dumb. Oh my god. Page 384. Augustus, the professor, whispered something about clatonics into my left ear, but I couldn't hear it. Also, I'd forgotten what we were talking about. Bro. We're still using the she's deaf in one ear thing? This is how much book I have left. How long can this fucking miscommunication trope continue? Also, he just pinned her against the wall and she was like totally fine with it and like slightly turned on. Having a fear of being touched doesn't just automatically disappear when the person who is locking you in their grip is a hot dude, okay? Like having a storyline where it's like these men are helping her overcome her trauma and her fears, like that's one thing. But when it's like, I'm scared of being touched, except if they're like super hot, like that just doesn't really work for me. Especially when all the ways that they touch her are like pinning her up against a wall and gently choking her. But like somehow she's fine with that. It's like the weirdest fucking thing. So a couple of men have like made passes at her and she's gotten boxes with their heads in them. Right? One would assume it's either Boatman or the professor that's sending her heads in boxes. But also, if she's gonna get with him, is she like okay with decapitation? Like, how is this going to play out? Sending a girl flowers is so passé. I have less than 100 pages left. No sex has happened, and she's still totally fucking clueless. I don't mind a slow burn, but I do mind a slow burn that's just stagnant. Like, nothing really has happened, at least in terms of like the bigger plot lines. So it is obvious to everyone that the professor and the boat boy have decided that they're gonna be like joint husbands with Alexis, and she's clearly so confused and they're like, no, you belong to me. Arr. I don't know, call me old-fashioned, but I feel like there should be some consent. And I think they sent her like jewelry inside of the heads that they sent her and are like, why didn't you take the jewels? Like, there's all these customs and they expect her to know it, but also they know that she's a mutt that doesn't know any of this shit. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. Okay, so the boxes with the heads in them were betrothal boxes, and by opening them, she accepted the marriage to both boat boy and professor. So she ends up being forced to marry both of them, which she does, and then as for a marriage kiss, they just like have sex right there. So we also get a scene with the two protectors, Achilles and the other one, and apparently they are like, no, Alexis is perfect for us, so we're gonna steal her. So fodder for the next book. All the twists at the end I saw coming in the first 100 pages, so that meant that the intervening 400 pages were kind of just nothing. At this point in the video, it was already 2 in the morning and I was almost delirious, so I'm back home now, but I decided to film in my recliner for maximum continuity. By this point, I have finished this book, so I am just gonna rephrase what I said then, but like more articulately and awake. So Alexis was tricked into marrying both Boat Boy and Professor Man, and the reason that they made her do that is because what I didn't mention earlier is that there was this marriage law that was put into place. Which all you need to know basically is that all of these chloroform people, which does include Boat Boy and Professor Man, were going to be forced into marrying like regular Olympians, except now that Alexis is here, there is a loophole. So since they were going to be forced into marriage, they forced her into marriage. You got it. So obviously, even though these men are super duper hot, apparently, they obviously are horrible people. And as we know, since we're adults, just because you're hot doesn't mean that you're excused from doing awful shit. I will say, after having Alexis being a complete prude for the entire time, it was very jarring to read that immediate post-wedding sex scene. And I know I said it a million times in this vlog, but you can't just excuse trauma away because the men that are touching you are hot. It doesn't work that way, and frankly, it is insulting. There's also a scene earlier that I didn't mention because I was so extremely done with this book, where all three of them were dancing very sexily together, and not only did that not bother her, but everyone around her was commenting on how hot they all looked together. That was technically after she graduated, but it also was with her professor in public. And that's another thing that I'm kind of confused on in this book, because Augustus, Professor Man, does mention when we get his POV that he's her professor, and what is he doing? This is so wrong. But then both continues to do it, and over the course of the book does things that shows that he's obsessed with Alexis very publicly. So for me, that's just a case of, in this universe, is that scandalous or not? Because I've seen it both ways. And it's like the author wants to have this like illicit, forbidden romance, but also make it socially acceptable, and having both doesn't work. Also, the whole student professor trope does gross me out in this book in particular. Like, I guess theoretically it could be done well, but when you have something like this where the female protagonist is so far out of her depth and so naive and innocent, as slammed into our heads by the author, that power dynamic just doesn't work for me, and it makes me feel gross. The final gripe that I want to bring up with this book is that every plot twist was absolutely foreshadowed to death. Absolutely nothing was a surprise in this book, except for who she ended up with in the end, I guess. And like, I guess the machinations of the marriage law, like maybe that was a little bit of a surprise, but everything else was just so incredibly foreshadowed, especially the fact that she was Cleforian. Which brings me to the final plot twist that I haven't discussed yet, which is that she is the long-lost daughter of Hades and Persephone. Of course, she's a chloroform person, but she is also Hercules. And first of all, the title of the book foreshadows that and spoils it, but second of all, look at the blurb on the back of the book. As you can see on the back, it says, "I'm just a girl, and as it turns out, I'm Hercules." That is the final big plot twist of the book. So why would you spoil it in the blurb on the back? You assume that the stuff on the back of the book is going to be common knowledge going into the book, not that it's going to be the final plot twist after 500 pages. So both because of that and for the other plot twist, the fact that the author beats you over the head with every single piece of foreshadowing information, nothing was a surprise. There was no big twist at the end. I have seen reviews where people talk about how twisty this is. I thought that that was not the case at all. Honestly, all the twists were boring as shit because they were foreshadowed to death. Final thoughts. Did I like this book? No. Do I think it's bad? Yes. Is it the worst book that I have read for these challenges? No. The bar for that is incredibly low, as we all know. I thought a lot of it was boring. I thought a lot of it was extremely heavy-handed. The writing quality is not the worst that I have read by a long shot. And there were parts of this where I wasn't having a completely bad time. I'll admit it. I honestly think that maybe I should read the second book because I feel like the sex scenes in that are going to be absolutely goofy, and I think that I'll have a really fun time hate reading that one. This one is going to get a 1.5 out of 5 from me. Didn't like it, thought it was bad, but also not the worst of the worst. If you made it to the end of this vlog/review, thank you so much for watching, and let me know what I should hate read next in the comments.